Death had a strange sense of humor. Because the very first sound that hit my ears after I drowned was the exact same order that had sent me to the bottom of the Atlantic 6 days earlier. "Mercer, you're taking the Blackfin prototype out tomorrow." Colonel Evelyn Hart's voice cut through the briefing room like a blade. My hand froze mid-reach over the mission folder. For one impossible second, the fluorescent lights vanished. I was back in that moonless hell, freezing water. Burning jet fuel spreading behind me, one arm barely clinging to a half-deflated raft. My ribs screamed with every breath. My left leg had given up hours ago. Every inhale tasted like blood and salt. The rescue beacon next to me blinked green, then yellow, then died. No helicopters. No patrol planes. No destroyer sweeping its searchlights across the black waves. On the third night, I stared up at a sky crowded with stars and finally understood the truth: they had left me. Then the ocean closed over my face, and I stopped fighting. But now I was sitting under white fluorescent lights at North Point Naval Air Station, 6 days before that death, watching the woman I once loved stand at the head of the conference table. Colonel Evelyn Hart, commander of the 19th Maritime Operations Wing. My wife for 2 years. A woman so controlled that most of the base had never seen her raise her voice. A woman whose rare smiles I had once treasured like gold. A woman who, in my first life, had signed the order to stop searching after just 20 hours, because Major Adrian Cole convinced her that continuing would risk more crews. 20 hours. I had survived 71. I knew that number in my bones now. Evelyn's gray eyes shifted from the folder to me. "Captain Mercer." I realized everyone was watching. Major Adrian Cole sat 2 chairs to my left, his expression calm, sympathetic, trustworthy, exactly as I remembered. He had spent years building that face. In my first life, I had thought Adrian was merely ambitious. I learned the truth far too late. The maintenance report on the Blackfin had been altered. My route had been leaked. My backup transponder had been removed. The storm deviation coordinates had been changed after launch. And Adrian had known precisely how long a man could survive in those waters before the ocean erased every trace. I looked down at the folder. My mission authorization sat on top. In my previous life, I had signed it without hesitation. I had wanted to prove myself; more than that, I had wanted to prove something to Evelyn. She had promoted Adrian to Executive Operations Officer 3 months earlier, over my objections. Every time I questioned his decisions, she accused me of letting our marriage interfere with professional judgment. So when the Blackfin mission appeared, I took it without complaint. I wanted to show her I could separate duty from resentment. That decision killed me. This time, I picked up the pen. Adrian leaned back, the corner of his mouth almost twitching. I remembered that tiny expression. He already thought he had one. I drew a line straight through the signature box. Then I wrote 3 words beneath it: pending technical review. The room went dead silent. Evelyn's expression hardened. "Explain." "I'm requesting a complete independent inspection of the aircraft, navigation package, emergency transmitters, and mission route authentication chain." I kept my voice level. Adrian gave a quiet laugh. "Ryan Engineering cleared the platform yesterday." "I know." I turned toward him. "Then what's the problem?" "The problem is that I'm the pilot." His smile faded slightly. Evelyn placed both hands flat on the table. "This flight has already been delayed twice. Then delaying it a 3rd time won't destroy national security." "Captain," her voice sharpened. In my first life, that tone could make me back down. "Not anymore." I slid the unsigned authorization toward her. "Colonel, if you order me to fly, I'll fly. But put it in writing that my request for an independent safety inspection was denied." Adrian's head turned sharply. That got his attention. Evelyn stared at me for several long seconds. "You're asking me to document a refusal of a safety request?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because if something goes wrong, I don't want anyone claiming I accepted the risk without objection." The silence changed. This was no longer a marital argument. It was a command liability issue. Evelyn knew it. Everyone at the table knew it. Adrian knew it best. He leaned forward. "There's no need to turn a routine test sortie into an investigation." I looked at him. "I didn't say investigation." His eyes narrowed. "You said authentication chain. And you inferred interference." For the first time, I saw irritation crack his calm expression. Evelyn noticed it too. She closed the folder. "Independent review approved." Captain Mercer, you'll lead it with Chief Warrant Officer Barnes. Major Cole will provide all operational records. Adrian started to speak. Evelyn cut him off. That's an order. I stood. Yes, ma'am. As I walked out, Evelyn called my name. Ryan. I stopped. The others were already gathering folders. She rarely used my first name inside headquarters. I turned for one moment. She looked less like Colonel Hart and more like the woman who had once fallen asleep against my shoulder during a 15-hour flight delay in Norfolk. What changed? Everything instead, I said. I started reading what I signed. Then I left. Chief Warrant Officer Thomas Barnes was waiting outside Hangar 4, 30 minutes later. Barnes was 53, broad-shouldered, permanently unimpressed, and one of the finest aircraft system specialists I had ever known. In my first life, he died 11 months after me, officially a highway accident. Much later, while I was already drowning, I remembered something he told me 3 days before my final mission. Somebody's been touching systems they don't understand. At the time, I thought he meant junior mechanics. Now, I wasn't so sure. Barnes held up a tablet. You created quite a storm upstairs. I'm trying to avoid one offshore. He grunted. Fair enough. The Blackfin sat inside the hangar like a predator at rest. Experimental maritime strike and reconnaissance aircraft, designed for low-altitude penetration, long-range coastal surveillance, and autonomous emergency routing. Fast enough to outrun most weather cells. Advanced enough to become a billion-dollar procurement program if the test series succeeded. Valuable enough that several careers depended on who controlled its data. Adrian was program operations chief. I was lead test pilot. Evelyn commanded the wing overseeing the trials. In my first life, I had believed the attack on me was personal. After dying and waking up 6 days earlier, I began asking a more useful question. What if I had only been in the way? Barnes opened the avionics panel. You said complete inspection. That means complete. I know. We'll miss tomorrow's sortie. That's the idea. He glanced at me. You expecting to find something? I'm expecting not to die. That earned me a longer look. Marriage trouble? I almost laughed. Why does everyone think refusing to die is marital conflict? Because your wife runs the wing and you just made her sign off on grounding her favorite program. Favorite program? Barnes smirked. You thought I was going to say favorite officer? I said nothing. His smile vanished. Hell, Mercer, you really are having marriage trouble. We worked for 11 hours. Nothing. At least nothing obvious. Hydraulics clean. Flight controls tested correctly. Engine diagnostics normal. Fuel system uncompromised. Primary navigation software matched authorized build records. By sunset, I began questioning my own memory. Maybe the sabotage hadn't happened yet. That possibility was worse. If Adrian altered the aircraft later, inspecting it now changed nothing. Barnes was preparing to close the emergency systems panel when I remembered the water. The beacon. I could still see that green indicator flashing beside me before it failed, not red, green. A green light meant transmission. Yet Search Command had later reported receiving no emergency signal. Wait. Barnes looked back. What? Pulled the secondary locator. He frowned. We tested it. Physically remove it. Why? Humor me. He muttered something about pilots and superstition but reached inside. The emergency locator transmitter came free. Barnes examined the serial plate, then stopped. What? He rubbed the metal with his thumb. Get me the component registry. I opened the tablet. He read the number aloud. I searched. No result. Barnes took the tablet from me and tried again. Still nothing. That transmitter isn't ours, he said. A cold sensation crawled across my back. Can it function? Sure. Can it look functional without transmitting on our rescue frequencies? Barnes looked at me very carefully. He connected the unit to a bench analyzer. 30 seconds later, his face changed. Well, it broadcasts. My stomach tightened. On what frequency? Commercial Marine Emergency Band. That's not what our search aircraft monitor. No range. He ran another test. Maybe 15 miles under ideal conditions. The Blackfin's assigned emergency transmitter should have been detectable by military satellites hundreds of miles away. I stared at the small metal box that had killed me as surely as any bullet. Who installed it? Barnes's jaw hardened. We're going to find out. The electronic maintenance log showed the transmitter had been replaced 36 hours earlier after a diagnostic alert. Technician authorization, Sergeant Liam Porter. Porter was on leave. We called him. He answered from a hospital. What replacement? He asked. Barnes put the call on speaker. The Blackfin Secondary ELT. I didn't replace anything. The maintenance log carries your credentials. That's impossible. Where are you? St. Catherine Medical Center. Appendectomy. Been here since Monday night. Barnes and I looked at each other. Today was Thursday. The transmitter had been changed Tuesday morning. I asked, who knew you'd be absent? My shop operations personnel. Did anyone request your login credentials recently? No. Then he paused. Wait. Barnes leaned closer. What? Major Cole's office requested remote access authorization for all maintenance leads last month. Said they needed emergency override capability during final trials. There it was. Not proof, but a door. I ended the call and immediately copied the maintenance logs onto an encrypted evidence drive. Barnes watched me. You're taking this seriously. I want the hangar locked. That requires command approval. I know. You think somebody will come back? I think somebody already knows I requested an inspection. Barnes didn't argue. Evelyn arrived 20 minutes later. Adrian came with her. What surprised me was that she had also brought military police. I liked that it meant she had taken my message seriously. She walked directly to the workbench. This is the unit. Barnes nodded. Wrong serial, wrong frequency package, reduced range. Adrian picked up the inspection report. His expression barely changed. Could be a procurement mix-up. Barnes snorted. A procurement mix-up with stolen maintenance credentials? Adrian looked at him. We don't know they were stolen. I just spoke to Porter. He's been hospitalized since Monday. Evelyn's eyes moved to Adrian. When was the unit installed? Tuesday. She turned to the MPs, seal the aircraft. Nobody accesses this hangar without written authorization from me or Colonel Pierce at Inspector General. Adrian stiffened. IG? Evelyn looked at him. Yes. That seems premature. Someone altered a military aircraft using false credentials. We haven't established intent. We don't need intent to preserve evidence. Adrian's jaw flexed once. I saw it. So did Evelyn, but she said nothing. That night, for the first time since waking from death, I slept. I dreamed of drowning. At 3:17 a.m., I woke with my hand around my own throat. The bedroom was dark. Evelyn's side of the bed was empty. We had been sleeping in separate rooms for 3 months before my death. That had started after our argument about Adrian. I had accused him of manipulating operations assignments to isolate officers who challenged him. Evelyn told me I had no evidence. She was right. I didn't. So I made the mistake of turning suspicion into jealousy. I said she trusted him more than her husband. She replied that at work, trust had to be earned professionally. I carried those words into my first death. Now I understood something I hadn't then. Adrian had wanted that argument. He had carefully made sure every suspicious action could be interpreted as my resentment toward his closeness with Evelyn. He didn't need her love. He needed her disbelief. My phone vibrated. A message from Evelyn, *, don't come to headquarters yet. IG has opened a preliminary inquiry, *. I typed back, understood, then another message appeared, *, are you awake? *. I stared at it. She had not asked me a personal question in weeks. Yes, 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Returned. I almost died once during training over the North Sea, she wrote. *, I still remember the sound of the emergency alarm. *, I read the sentence twice. Another message came, I should have taken your concern more seriously in my first life. I would have used that opening. I would have told her how hurt I was. I would have asked whether she finally believed me. I would have tried to repair us. Instead, I wrote, make sure the investigation stays clean. Her answer took nearly a minute, it will. I put the phone down. Second chances were not invitations to rebuild everything. Sometimes they were permission to stop rebuilding what had already collapsed. By noon, the inquiry had found 3 more anomalies. A navigation update request submitted under an inactive officer's credentials. A weather routing package accessed from Adrian's office after midnight. A deleted authorization record tied to the Blackfin satellite transponder. Adrian denied involvement. He said his office terminal was used by multiple staff members. That was plausible, annoyingly plausible. He was too smart to leave fingerprints on every door. The IG investigator, Colonel Miriam Pierce, called me in that afternoon. She was a compact woman with silver at her temples and the patient expression of someone who preferred facts to personalities. "Captain Mercer, why did you request the inspection?" I had prepared for this. I could not tell her I remembered drowning in another life. I noticed inconsistencies. What inconsistencies? The emergency systems certification was completed unusually quickly. Major Cole also pushed for the test window despite worsening offshore weather. Unusual pressure is not evidence. No. Did you suspect sabotage before the inspection? Yes. Why? I chose my words carefully. Because several unrelated irregularities all benefited the same operational timeline. Pierce studied me. Which timeline? Tomorrow's flight. She leaned back. You realize how this looks? Yes. You have a documented personal conflict with Major Cole. Yes. You accused him of misconduct 3 months ago and withdrew the complaint because you lacked evidence. Yes. And now, days before a major procurement milestone, you discover tampering in an aircraft he manages. Yes. She tapped her pen. If I were trying to discredit you, Captain, I'd say you staged this. I know. Her eyes sharpened. You know that possibility occurred to me before I entered this room. That answer seemed to interest her. What would you do if you were investigating yourself? Pull the hangar security archive from an independent server. Audit badge access. Compare hardware lot numbers against procurement records. Check whether the fake transmitter was ever entered into base inventory. Trace login credential use geographically. And inspect every other Blackfin-related platform. Pierce stopped tapping her pen. Every platform. If the goal is bigger than killing me, mine won't be the only compromised aircraft. She said nothing. Then she reached for her phone. By evening, a second altered component was found not on my aircraft, but on a naval unmanned reconnaissance drone scheduled to accompany the Blackfin test. Its encrypted data recorder had been replaced with a visually identical device. The replacement would still record telemetry. It would also transmit a copy somewhere else. The investigation changed instantly. This was no longer potential murder. It was espionage. The base locked down. Adrian was suspended from operational access pending inquiry. He did not panic. That bothered me. In my first life, Adrian had always been most dangerous when cornered. He didn't lash out. He changed the board. 2 days later, the board changed again. A civilian contractor named Calder Dynamics reported that one of its secure servers had been breached. The intrusion logs pointed to my credentials. Military police came to my office at 6:40 in the morning. Evelyn came with them. She looked exhausted. Ryan. I knew immediately. What did he do? Her eyes tightened. Don't make assumptions. What am I accused of? Colonel Pierce entered behind her. Unauthorized transfer of Blackfin guidance architecture to an external server. I leaned back slowly. There it was. In my first life, this had happened after my death. The investigation concluded that I had stolen data before disappearing because my body was never recovered. Rumors spread that I had defected. Evelyn had been forced to sit through hearings about whether her husband had betrayed the country. I only learned that months later, in my first life, through a strange final sequence I had never fully understood. After 3 days at sea, I was picked up by a smuggling vessel, not rescued, captured. The men aboard recognized military equipment in my survival suit and locked me below deck. I survived another 22 days. Long enough to overhear radio reports calling me a fugitive. Long enough to understand Adrian had framed me. Long enough to escape once. Long enough to die from infection on an abandoned coast before I could contact anyone. That was where my first life truly ended. Not in the ocean. On a concrete floor in a derelict warehouse, listening to distant waves. I looked at Pierce. When did the transfer happen? 2 nights ago. Where was I? Your residence. Was my terminal accessed? No. Then someone cloned my certificate. Possibly. Or you did it beforehand. Evelyn said quietly, Ryan, surrender your devices. I looked at her. In my first life, that request would have felt like betrayal. Now it was procedure. I unlocked my phone and placed it on the desk, then my tablet, then my secure access token. Take everything. Pierce raised an eyebrow. You're not asking for counsel. I will after you preserve my devices. You seem confident. I am. Why? Because whoever framed me moved too early. Silence. Pierce leaned forward. Explain. If I wanted to steal Blackfin guidance architecture, I wouldn't expose aircraft tampering 48 hours before sending it. The investigation increased scrutiny on every system I supposedly intended to exploit. That could be misdirection. It could. I nodded toward my access token. But then I'd have to be very stupid or very confident. Evelyn's gaze remained fixed on me. You're not stupid. No, Pierce collected my devices. You're temporarily restricted to base. Understood. The MPs left. Evelyn remained. We were alone for the first time in days. She closed the office door. Tell me what you know. I looked at her. Professionally or personally? Don't do that. Do what? Turn everything into distance. I almost smiled. That's an interesting complaint from you. Her face tightened. Fair hit. Not useful. I stood and went to the window. Flight crews crossed the apron outside. The world looked absurdly normal. I know Adrian is involved. You don't know that. I do. How? That was the question I could never answer honestly, because I watched him win once. Because I died with his victory playing over a radio, because I knew exactly which trap came next. Except now the timeline had shifted. In my first life, the Calder hack happened after I disappeared. Now it had happened before. That meant Adrian was adapting. My memories were no longer a map. They were only a warning. I turned back. I know because whoever did this understands both operations and our relationship. Evelyn went still. Our relationship. They needed someone positioned close enough to you that my accusations would look personal. Someone I had already challenged. Someone whose access could be explained by his job. Someone who knew that if I grew suspicious, you would question whether I was reacting as an officer or as your husband. Her face lost color. You're saying I was used? Yes. And you think Adrian deliberately created conflict between us? I think he encouraged it. Evelyn looked away for a long time. She said nothing. Then, almost reluctantly, he told me you were becoming unstable. I felt something cold settle inside me. When? 3 months ago. After your complaint. What exactly did he say? That you were fixating on him. That you were monitoring his assignments. That he was concerned you might take unnecessary risks to outperform him. I laughed once, no humor in it. What? That's good. You think this is funny? No. I think he's good at what he does. At what? At making people defend themselves against accusations they never made. I walked toward the door. Where are you going? To training. You're restricted. To base, not to my quarters. Ryan. I stopped. For the first time since waking, she looked genuinely afraid, not of me, but of what she might have missed. I need to know something. What? If you had found nothing in that inspection, would you still have flown? I thought of black water, the dead beacon, my own fingers losing strength. No. She absorbed that. Why? Because sometimes surviving requires trusting the part of yourself everyone else calls paranoid. I opened the door. Maybe you should remember that too. For the next 48 hours, I stopped thinking like a victim. That was the biggest mistake I had made in my first life. I had spent too much time asking why Adrian targeted me. The better question was what he needed. The Blackfin had 3 valuable things: its hardware, its software, and its test data. Hardware could be stolen eventually. Software could be copied. But real-world test data was unique. The upcoming ocean trial was designed to push the aircraft's terrain-following radar, electronic countermeasures, adaptive routing, and encrypted cooperative targeting systems through extreme conditions. A foreign buyer could save years of research with one complete telemetry package. The altered drone recorder made sense. So did the Blackfin sabotage. I had thought the fake emergency transmitter existed to kill me. Now I saw another possibility: it existed to make me disappear. If the aircraft went down in deep water, recovery could take months. If I disappeared with it after stealing classified data, everyone would assume I fled or died during escape. The compromised drone would transmit the real prize elsewhere during the flight. My death was camouflage. That realization changed everything. I requested a meeting with Colonel Pierce and Evelyn. Pierce listened without interrupting. Evelyn stood at the back of the room, arms folded. When I finished, Pierce asked, "Why sabotage the pilot's emergency transmitter if the goal is only data theft?" "Because the pilot could report unusual systems behavior." "Why frame you?" "To redirect the investigation." "Why you specifically?" "Because I was the lead pilot. I had access and I already had a conflict with Major Cole." Pierce leaned back. "Elegant. Which means it probably isn't the whole plan." Evelyn finally spoke. "What do you propose?" "Run the mission." Her head snapped toward me. No. Pierce looked between us. I continued. "Not as planned." Evelyn stepped forward. "You are currently a possible espionage suspect." "Exactly." "Exactly what?" "If Adrian believes his frame worked, he may think the investigation is focused on me." Pierce's eyes narrowed. "You want to bait him?" "I want to give whoever's behind this a reason to complete the operation." Evelyn's voice became ice. "You nearly grounded an aircraft over one faulty transmitter. And now you want to launch yourself as bait?" "I didn't say myself." "You didn't need to." Pierce raised a hand. "Colonel Hart." Evelyn ignored her. "No." I looked at my wife. "This isn't your decision alone. I command the wing. And Colonel Pierce commands the investigation." "Pierce." I was hoping not to be dragged into a marital crossfire. "This isn't marital." "It sounds marital." "It's operational." I almost laughed. Some things apparently survive death and rebirth unchanged. Pierce looked at me. "Walk me through it." So I did. We would publicly announce that the investigation had found no conclusive evidence of deliberate sabotage. The Blackfin trial would resume. I would remain under investigation but be temporarily restored to flight status because I was the only pilot qualified for the complete test profile on short notice. That part was true. The compromised drone would be replaced with a clean aircraft, but the replacement would imitate the data stream of the original. Cyber teams would monitor for unauthorized access. A rescue destroyer would remain beyond normal range with its transponder dark. 2 aircraft would shadow the mission from a distance. My Blackfin would carry redundant emergency systems installed under Pierce's supervision. Every mission file would contain unique digital watermarks. If someone stole or redirected data, we would know exactly which access point they used. Pierce listened, then asked, "And if no one takes the bait?" "Then we fly a successful test and lose nothing." Evelyn's expression told me exactly what she thought. "We could lose," Pierce noticed. "Captain, step outside." I left through the closed door. I couldn't hear the conversation. I didn't need to. 10 minutes later, Evelyn came out. She stopped beside me. "You're determined to do this?" "Yes." "Even after what almost happened?" She didn't know what almost happened. She knew only the fake transmitter. I knew 3 days of water, 22 days of captivity, a lonely death. "Yes." "Why?" "Because if we don't finish this now, he gets another chance." "Who?" "Whoever did it." She studied me. "You almost said Adrian." "I still think it's Adrian." "I know." She stepped closer. "There's something else you aren't telling me." My heartbeat slowed. "What makes you think that?" "You changed overnight." "I found evidence." "No," her voice softened. "You changed before we found it." I said nothing. She searched my face. "The morning of the briefing. You looked at me like you hadn't seen me in years." "That was too close." I forced a shrug. "You're imagining things." "I don't imagine things." "No, you just missed them." The words landed harder than I intended. Evelyn's face went still. I regretted it for half a second, then remembered a search order ending after 20 hours. Not because she hated me, because Adrian manipulated data showing worsening conditions and low survivability. Because command had to weigh lives against probability. Because she trusted the wrong analysis. Understanding her decision did not erase the water. I deserve that, she said. I hadn't expected it. She looked toward the briefing room door. Pierce approved your plan. I assumed she would. I didn't. That almost earned a smile. Almost. Then she said, I'm leading the rescue package. No, her eyebrows rose. Now it was my turn. You're the wing commander. Correct. You don't personally fly rescue cover. I'm still qualified. That's not the point. What is the point? If something goes wrong, command needs you here. If something goes wrong, I need to know the person making the recovery decision won't stop after 20 hours. The hallway tilted. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Evelyn frowned. What? Nothing. You went pale. I'm fine. Ryan. I'm fine. She watched me with suspicion, but I walked away before she could ask more. The mission launched at 5:32 days later. The sky was clear over North Point. The storm waited 400 miles offshore. Just like before, I strapped into the Blackfin and checked every system myself: primary locator, secondary locator, satellite beacon, emergency raft, survival radio, manual navigation backup, all clean. Barnes leaned into the cockpit before sealing the canopy. If you break my aircraft, I'll kill you. If the ocean doesn't, I'll fight it. Good to know. His expression became serious. Mercer. Yeah. Come back. I met his eyes. I plan to. The canopy lowered. Evelyn's voice came through my headset. Blackfin 1, North Point actual. I swallowed. In my first life, Adrian had been mission controller. Today, Evelyn had taken the position herself. Blackfin 1 final status. I looked at the runway. Ready. A pause, then quieter, bring it home. I pushed the throttles forward. The aircraft launched into morning light. For the first 90 minutes, everything went perfectly. We climbed east. The replacement drone joined formation. Test sequence 1 completed: radar sweep clean, adaptive routing clean, encrypted cooperative link clean. Pierce's cyber team fed quiet updates through a separate channel. No intrusion. No suspicious access. At 7:22, we entered the storm perimeter. Clouds swallowed the world. Rain hammered the canopy. Turbulence hit hard enough to rattle my teeth. I flew manually. North Point, Blackfin 1 beginning low-level profile. Copy. Proceed. Evelyn's voice stayed controlled. This was where I had died. Not yet, but close. In my first life, 6 minutes after starting the low-level run, I received a route correction, turn south-southeast. Descend 600 feet, it put me near a severe microburst. I obeyed. The left engine flamed out. Then the right. I never understood why both failed until now. At 7:27, the message arrived: route update authenticated. Turn south-southeast. Descend 600 feet. My blood went cold. North Point, go. I received route update Sierra 7. Silence. Then Evelyn, we did not transmit Sierra 7. There it was. Pierce came onto the secure channel: Blackfin 1, hold current heading. Cyber team tracing. The route display flickered. A second message appeared: autopilot authority transfer. My control stiffened. Someone was in the system. Evelyn's voice sharpened. Disconnect network guidance. I hit the isolation switch. Nothing happened. The aircraft banked right, hard. Warning alarms filled the cockpit. Control override. Blackfin 1, abort mission. I'm trying. The nose dropped. Altitude unwound: 10,000, 9,000, 8. I pulled against the controls. The stick fought me. This was new. Nothing like this had happened in my first life. Butterfly effect. Adrian had changed his plan. My memories were useless now. Good. I had spent the last 6 days preparing to survive without them. I killed the main flight control computer. The cockpit went dark for half a second. Manual backup engaged. The control stick came alive. I pulled. The Blackfin shuddered. 6,000 feet. 5, 4. The nose rose. I leveled at 3,800. Control restored. A breath escaped somewhere over the radio: maybe Evelyn, maybe Pierce. We traced the intrusion to an airborne relay. Location unknown. The replacement drone suddenly broke formation. Drone 2 deviating. No response. Its lights vanished into cloud. Then my threat receiver screamed. Missile warning. My stomach dropped. Missile launch. I rolled left. A streak of white crossed behind me. Someone had armed the drone. That was impossible under test configuration unless the replacement itself had been compromised. The second missile warning sounded. I dove. Rain became a solid wall. North Point, Drone 2 is hostile. Evelyn's voice snapped back, Shadow Flight, intercept. 2 distant fighters moved in, but the storm was huge and the drone was already close. I dropped countermeasures. The missile passed beneath my wing and detonated behind me. The blast hit like a truck. Every alarm in the cockpit came alive, left engine damage, fire warning, hydraulic pressure dropping. The aircraft yawed violently. I fought it. The ocean appeared through broken cloud below. Black, endless, exactly as I remembered. For 1 second, fear became so complete that I was no longer in the cockpit. I was back in the water, freezing, bleeding, alone. No. Not again, I slapped the fire suppression system. Left engine died. Right engine held barely. Blackfin 1, turn west immediately. Evelyn, I could hear tension under her control now. Unable. Hydraulic loss. What's your altitude? 2,200, distance from coast 380 miles. Shadow flight is 9 minutes out. I looked at the engine gauges. I didn't have 9 minutes. Right engine oil pressure falling. Ryan. That was no longer Colonel Hart. Evelyn, keep it in the air. I'm working on it. The drone appeared out of cloud ahead. Too close. Its weapons bay opened. I made the only decision available. I pointed the Blackfin at it. Ryan, what are you doing? Making sure it doesn't get another shot. Break away. No. Captain Mercer, break away. The drone fired. So did I. The Blackfin carried inert test missiles, but the 20mm cannon was live for emergency defense. I squeezed the trigger. Rounds tore through the drone. Its missile launched at the same instant. I rolled. The drone exploded. The missile clipped my right wing. The world became sound. Metal ripped. The canopy fractured. My shoulder slammed against the harness. The Blackfin rolled uncontrollably. Mayday, mayday, Blackfin 1 going down. Evelyn shouted something, I couldn't hear it. Altitude raced toward 0. I pulled the ejection handle. Nothing. Again. Nothing. The damaged canopy had jammed the sequence. 800 feet. I released the harness. 600, kicked the emergency canopy charge. The canopy blew away. Wind ripped through the cockpit. 200. I climbed halfway out. The ocean filled my vision. I jumped. The Blackfin hit first. The explosion turned daylight white. Then the sea hit me. I woke underwater. No idea which way was up. Pain burned through my right shoulder. Bubbles. Follow the bubbles, I kicked. My head broke the surface. I dragged in air. Burning wreckage floated 50 yards away. The storm swallowed everything else. I reached for my survival vest. Locator. Green. I almost laughed. Green. Real green this time. North Point, Mercer. Static. North Point, Mercer. Do you copy? Nothing. I tried again. The storm screamed over the waves. Then a voice broke through, Ryan. Evelyn. Weak, buried in static. I'm alive. Her reply vanished, then returned, beacon acquired. Stay with it. I closed my eyes. The sentence nearly broke me. Beacon acquired, in my first life, nobody ever said those words. I'm staying. Rescue inbound. Lightning flashed. I looked at the waves. They were already building. I found the emergency raft and pulled the inflation cord. Nothing, of course. I ripped open the manual valve. The raft inflated halfway. Enough. I dragged myself inside. My right shoulder was dislocated. Blood ran from a cut above my eye. My left ankle felt wrong. But I was alive. The radio crackled, Ryan, give me condition. Shoulder injury. Possible ankle fracture. Conscious. Any major bleeding? No. Stay awake. That's an order. Yes. I laughed. It hurt. Copy. Shadow flight reached my position 11 minutes later, but they could not recover me. Neither aircraft was equipped for sea rescue. They circled overhead, marking my location. A helicopter launched from the covert destroyer. Then the storm intensified. Visibility dropped below minimum. The helicopter turned back. Evelyn did not. I learned later that she boarded the second launch herself. At the time, all I knew was her voice remained on the radio. For hours, the beacon drifted. The sea pushed me east. The storm expanded between me and the destroyer. At 11:40, my satellite beacon failed, not sabotage, impact damage. The radio became my only link. At 1300 hours, Shadowflight had to return for fuel. At 1400 hours, the storm blocked airborne search. At 1630, a wave overturned the raft. I lost the survival pack. By sunset, I had only the vest, the radio, a water pouch, and a signal mirror that was useless in darkness. Evelyn kept talking, sometimes every 5 minutes, sometimes every 20. Ryan, here. Ryan, still here. Ryan, stop checking. No. Night fell. The ocean changed after dark. In daylight, it was dangerous. At night, it became infinite. I floated beneath a sky with no horizon and remembered dying. My body began shaking uncontrollably. Cold water stole heat faster than fear could create it. I tried to climb higher onto the half-inflated raft. My injured shoulder screamed. The radio crackled, Ryan. Yeah. You sound different. Cold. We have a surface vessel closing from the northwest. How long? A pause. Several hours. Too long. We both knew it. She refused to say it. Talk to me, she said. About what? Anything. That doesn't sound like you. No. You hate pointless conversation. I'm revising policy. Despite everything. I smiled. Very progressive. Another wave hit. I clung to the raft. Ryan? Here. Wave. Stay with me. I stared into darkness. Evelyn. Yes. In another life, would you have stopped searching? Silence. What kind of question is that? Answer it. No. You don't know that. Yes, I do. How? Because I'm not stopping now. My throat tightened. I closed my eyes. You'd have an operational limit. Not while there is a viable survival probability. That probability drops fast. I know. Eventually, command will order you to redirect assets. Then I'll challenge the order. You can't challenge physics. No, her voice hardened. But I can challenge paperwork. That was the most Evelyn Hart sentence ever spoken. I laughed until coughing took over. When it stopped, she said, Good. What? You're still annoying. Thank you, Colonel. Anytime, Captain. I survived the first night. Morning brought no rescue. The storm had driven me far east of the projected drift corridor. A damaged locator signal briefly appeared 70 miles north. Search assets followed it. It was debris. By noon, my radio battery was fading. Evelyn had been awake more than 30 hours. I could hear it now, the pauses, the roughness in her voice. Go sleep, I told her. No. Your staff can run the search. No. You're no use exhausted. Neither are you. I'm the one in the ocean. I get special rules. You've always thought that. I smiled weakly. The sun burned overhead. The storm had passed, but that created a new problem: heat, thirst. I rationed the water pouch. My lips cracked. I saw aircraft twice. Neither saw me. By afternoon, I began hallucinating. I thought Barnes was sitting on the edge of the raft. He looked annoyed. Told you not to break my aircraft. I told him to shut up. The radio answered, Who are you talking to? Barnes. A long pause. Barnes is at North Point. I know, Ryan. I know. Her voice changed. Drink water. Almost out. How much? Maybe 2 mouthfuls. Take 1. Saving it. For what? Later. Later requires you to remain functional now. That's unfairly logical. Drink. I drank. Late that evening, she lost my radio signal. I could hear her. She could not hear me. Ryan. I pressed transmit. Here. Ryan, answer. I'm answering. Ryan. For the first time in all the years I had known Evelyn, I heard panic in her voice, raw, uncontrolled. Ryan, answer me. I kept pressing the transmitter. Nothing. The radio's output amplifier had failed. I could receive but not send. Blackfin Survivor, this is North Point Actual. If you can't hear me, maintain flotation. Search continues. Blackfin Survivor. Not Ryan. She had forced herself back into procedure. But 5 minutes later, quietly, I'm still here. I looked at the radio. So am I. She could not hear me. The second night was worse. No conversation, no distraction, only waves. I thought about my first life, about how desperate I had been for Evelyn to choose me over Adrian. How many arguments I started. How many signs I misread. How much of myself I wasted measuring our marriage against a man who had never cared about her romantically at all. Adrian wanted access, influence, trust. He understood that the easiest person to manipulate was someone who believed emotions made them weak. Evelyn had built her entire adult life around control. Adrian never pushed against that, he praised it, used it. Whenever I reacted emotionally, he looked calm. Whenever I accused him, he asked for evidence. Whenever I demanded Evelyn trust me as her husband, he reminded her she was a commander. He turned our strengths into weapons against us. But I had helped him. That truth hurt more than blaming either of them. I had confused love with entitlement to belief. Evelyn had confused professionalism with emotional distance. Adrian simply stood between us and let the damage grow. In my first life, we never got time to understand that. This time, even if I died again, at least I understood. Near dawn, I heard engines. I lifted my head. Nothing. Hallucination. Then again, low, distant, real. I grabbed the signal mirror. The sky brightened. A helicopter appeared on the western horizon. My pulse exploded. I waved. Too far. The helicopter turned south. No, I stood halfway in the raft. Pain tore through my ankle. I raised the mirror. Sunlight flashed once, twice. The helicopter kept moving. Asterisk, come on. Again. Again, asterisk, it banked toward me. I started laughing. Then the engine sound changed. The helicopter passed overhead. A door gunner pointed down. I could see him. He could see me. The aircraft circled. I waited for the rescue swimmer. None jumped. Instead, the helicopter pulled away. My laughter stopped. Fuel. They were low on fuel. Recovery conditions were unsafe. I screamed until my throat bled. The helicopter vanished. I listened to the radio. Static, then Evelyn, we have visual contact. I froze. Survivor located. Repeat, survivor located. Her voice broke on the final word. I looked at the empty sky. Then come get me. The helicopter had only enough fuel to mark my position and return to a nearby cutter. A rescue boat launched. By the time it reached the coordinates, currents had moved me again. They found the raft empty because 10 minutes earlier, a wave had torn me away from it. I watched searchlights sweep the darkness 300 yards from me. I tried to shout. Nothing came out. I tried to swim. My ankle failed. The cutter moved past. I floated alone again. That was when I understood how cruel hope could be. The third day began with rain, not a storm, just steady gray rain. I caught water in my hands, drank until my stomach hurt. My body was failing. I knew the signs: confusion, weakness, periods of sleep I could not remember entering. At some point, I woke with my face in the water. I dragged myself upright. The radio still worked, barely. A new voice came through, Colonel Pierce to North Point Actual. You have been awake 58 hours. I'm ordering you to stand down for 4. No. Evelyn, that wasn't a suggestion. Relieve me of command. Then I may. You're compromising judgment. My judgment is that Captain Mercer remains alive. His raft was recovered empty. No blood, no body. His vest beacon emitted intermittent signal after raft separation. Once is enough. I stared at the radio. Pierce exhaled. Evelyn. I had never heard her use Evelyn's first name. You cannot personally run this forever. I don't need forever. How long do you need? Until I find him. You know what survivability models say. Yes. Then act like a commander. Evelyn's answer came cold enough to freeze the sea. I am. Silence. Then she continued, the models also assume average conditioning, average equipment, and standard injury profiles. Mercer is SIR qualified, advanced maritime survival certified, and survived 26 hours after a training crash in subarctic water when he was 24. His probability is low. It is not zero. That had happened. I had forgotten she knew. Pierce said, you memorized his survival file. Another pause. I signed it. That wasn't an answer. Pierce knew it. So did I. Finally, Pierce said, you have 6 hours. Then I want medical to evaluate you. Fine. And Evelyn? Yes. If he's alive, we'll find him. Evelyn's voice lowered. He's alive. I don't know why those 2 words mattered. Maybe because nobody had believed in me when I disappeared in my first life. Maybe because I had died thinking the woman I loved gave up. Maybe because now, in the second life I never asked for, she refused to. I put my head back. Fine, I whispered. I'll stay alive. Near noon, I heard another aircraft. I did not bother looking. Then a shadow crossed me low. I opened my eyes. A rescue helicopter. White search markings on the side. It passed, circled, came back. A figure leaned out. I raised one arm. The helicopter hovered. A rescue swimmer jumped. He hit the water 30 yards away. I laughed. Actually laughed. He reached me. Captain Mercer? Depends who's asking. Lieutenant Shaw, Rescue Squadron. You took your time. He stared at me. You've been in the ocean for 3 days. And that's what you say? Almost 3. 72 hours. Then definitely late. He secured the harness around me as the cable lifted us. I looked down at the Atlantic. In my first life, that ocean had been my grave. This time, it became the place I climbed out of. The helicopter door opened. Hands pulled me inside. Someone grabbed my vest. Another medic shouted about temperature and blood pressure. Then I saw her. Evelyn. She was sitting against the bulkhead in a flight suit. Her hair was pulled back badly, strands loose around her face. Her eyes were bloodshot. She looked nothing like the perfectly controlled colonel who terrified half the base. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then she hit me, not hard, a fist against my chest. The medic stared. I stared. Evelyn's face crumpled for exactly 1 second. You absolute bastard. I started laughing. She grabbed the front of my survival suit. I searched 3 days. I noticed. 3 days? I'm sorry. That is not an apology. I didn't choose the ocean. You flew directly at an armed drone. It was tactically sound. You are unbelievable. You look tired. She pulled me toward her, not a romantic kiss, not some dramatic confession. She pressed her forehead against mine. Her hands were shaking. That frightened me more than the ocean. Evelyn's heart did not shake. You were gone, she whispered. I closed my eyes. I know. I thought. She stopped. The helicopter vibrated around us. I waited. I thought I had lost you. In my first life, you did. The words almost escaped. Instead, I said, you found me. Her grip tightened. Yes. Then the medic physically separated us. Colonel, unless you want him to survive the Atlantic and die from hypothermia in my aircraft, move. Evelyn moved. Immediately. Some habits were stronger than emotion. I woke in the Naval Hospital 19 hours later. Barnes was asleep in a chair beside the bed. A magazine covered his face. I threw a plastic cup at him. It hit his chest. He woke violently. What the hell? Your aircraft broke. He stared at me, then removed the magazine. You look terrible. You look old. I am old. Fair. He stood for a second. His eyes shone. Then he slapped my good shoulder. I yelled. Wrong side. Sorry. You're not sorry. No, he sat again. 3 days. So everyone keeps telling me. Colonel Hart didn't sleep. I know. She flew 16 search sorties. I looked at him. What? Not all as pilot, some as mission commander. She was in the air or control center almost the entire time. Why? Barnes stared. You really did hit your head. No, I mean, why did Command allow that? They tried not to. I imagined Pierce's conversation. Of course. Barnes leaned forward. You want the other news? Adrian? My eyebrows rose. Hell, you really don't waste time. What happened? The drone intrusion trace finally completed. Came through a maintenance relay, then bounced across 4 contractor nodes. That doesn't prove Adrian. No, Barnes smiled. But the relay encryption key was generated from a hardware security module assigned to his office. I sat up too quickly. Pain flashed through my shoulder. He'll say it was stolen. He already did. Then we need more. We have more. Barnes pulled out his phone. While everyone was watching you drown, Colonel Pierce was watching everyone who thought you were dead. Smart. Very smart. Adrian would have known the operation failed the moment the drone was destroyed. But if he believed I died, he would assume I could no longer testify about the route injection. He might move to clean evidence. What did he do? He contacted Calder Dynamics. Who? A vice president named Nathan Voss. That name meant nothing to me, which meant we had gone completely beyond my first life knowledge. Good. Connection? Voss manages international procurement partnerships. Foreign access lots. What did Adrian say? Don't know yet. They met in person. Where? Private hangar outside Norfolk. I looked at Barnes. And Pierce followed him? Military counterintelligence did. That was better. Did they arrest him? No. Why? Because they want the network. I leaned back. This was no longer revenge against Adrian. It was bigger. And for the first time, I felt the strange freedom of not knowing what came next. In my first life, ignorance killed me. In this life, I had become capable enough to face it. Evelyn entered 20 minutes later. Barnes stood. I should go insult some mechanics. She nodded. When he left, she closed the door. I watched her. She had slept maybe 4 hours, enough to restore the Colonel mask. Almost. You're under orders not to discuss the investigation, she said. Good morning to you too. Good morning. She put a file on the table. You're also grounded. I assumed. For a minimum of 90 days? That seems excessive. You were lost at sea for 72 hours. 71 and change. Her stare stopped me. 72. Fine. She sat. The silence stretched. Then she said, Pierce told me what happened with the route injection. I figured you recognized it immediately. Yes. How? I looked toward the window. There it was again, the impossible question. Evelyn didn't let it go. You knew the transmitter was wrong before Barnes tested it. I suspected. You knew someone might alter the route. I suspected. You knew Adrian would move quickly if the investigation began. I suspected. You have a remarkable number of suspicions. I survived because of them. You survived because half the Atlantic Fleet was looking for you. I turned back. Half? Exaggeration from you. I'm sleep-deprived apparently. Her face softened, then hardened again. Ryan, I need to ask you something, and I need you not to avoid it. That sounds ominous. Did you know your aircraft would go down? The room became very quiet. No, that was true. Not this time. Did you believe it might? Yes. How strongly? Strongly enough to inspect everything. Yet you flew. Yes. Why? Because this operation would have continued without me. She stood. That isn't good enough. It's the truth. You could have died. So could another pilot. That does not make it acceptable. No. It makes it my responsibility. Her voice rose. You are not responsible for every danger on this base. I was responsible for one I understood better than anyone else. You didn't understand it. You guessed correctly. She paused. That is exactly what terrifies me. The word hung there. Terrifies. Not angers, not frustrates. Terrifies. Evelyn turned away. I saw her hands tighten. When your signal disappeared the second night, I kept hearing our last argument. I remembered it. 3 days before the briefing, she told me to stop treating Adrian like an enemy. I told her one day her trust in him would cost her something she couldn't replace. In my first life, that sentence haunted me while I drowned. Apparently, it haunted her now. I thought, she said slowly, that if you died, the last year of our marriage would be all I had left. I didn't answer. She faced me. I don't want that. This isn't the time. I know we have an espionage case. I know I nearly died. I know our marriage was broken before any of this happened. She took a breath. I'm not asking you to forgive me. Good. I'm not asking you to pretend I trusted you when I didn't. Good. I'm asking whether there's anything left. I looked at the woman I had once loved enough to destroy myself trying to reach. In my first life, I would have answered immediately yes. Anything. Everything This time, I thought carefully. There's truth left. Pain flickered across her face. I continued. That's more than we had before. She nodded slowly. I can work with truth. That's not the same as working on us. I know. Do you? She pulled the chair closer. Then I'll start there. For the next month, I recovered while the investigation widened. I hated hospitals. I hated physical therapy. I hated being grounded. I especially hated the young lieutenant assigned to supervise my shoulder rehabilitation. Again, Lieutenant Perez said. I already did 20. You did 18. I counted 20. You complained twice. Complaints aren't repetitions. I'm a captain in this room. You're a damaged shoulder. I looked at Barnes, who was visiting. Can I have her transferred? No, Perez said. Barnes laughed. My strength returned. So did the case. Pierce visited weekly. At first, she told me almost nothing. Then she began asking questions, not about Adrian's personality, about systems, workflow, mission approvals, who could alter what. That told me counterintelligence had found evidence, but not enough. Adrian remained suspended, but free. Nathan Voss resigned from Calder Dynamics and vanished before agents could detain him. That worried everyone. A smart network would now know it had been exposed. 6 weeks after my rescue, Pierce entered my hospital room with Evelyn and closed the blinds. You're being discharged tomorrow. Finally. You're still grounded. I know. I need you for something else. I sat up. What? Major Cole requested a formal hearing to challenge his suspension. I smiled. Evelyn didn't. Pierce noticed. You expected that? Yes. Why? Because waiting hurts him. Explain. If he believes you have enough evidence to arrest him, he needs to learn what it is. A hearing forces disclosure. Pierce nodded. Exactly. So you're giving him what he wants, partially. What do you want from me? He named you as the origin of a retaliatory campaign against him. I laughed. Of course he did. He claims your marriage deteriorated because you were jealous of his professional relationship with Colonel Hart. Evelyn's jaw tightened. He alleges you fabricated safety concerns, manipulated Barnes, and used the aircraft incident to redirect suspicion after an espionage operation you orchestrated failed. That's ambitious. It's also internally coherent, which is why he chose it. Pierce handed me a folder. You'll testify. Gladly. Evelyn spoke. Ryan. I looked at her. Don't underestimate him. I never will again. The hearing took place in a secure administrative courtroom at North Point. No press, no public gallery, only command representatives, counsel, investigators, witnesses, and a 3-officer review panel. Adrian wore his uniform. He looked rested, calm, wronged. When I entered, his eyes met mine. For the first time since rebirth, I saw fear, tiny, buried, real. He had expected me to die. That mattered. I sat across from him. His counsel spent an hour building the story, my prior conflict with Adrian. My complaint, my withdrawn allegations, my damaged marriage, my insistence on inspecting the Blackfin, my unusual anticipation of sabotage. Then they called me. Captain Mercer, Adrian's attorney said, you have accused Major Cole of intentionally compromising your aircraft. I said I believed he was involved. Without direct evidence at the time. Yes. You also accused him months earlier. I raised concerns. Concerns you withdrew because you lacked evidence. Isn't it true that you resented Major Cole's close professional relationship with your wife? Yes. The attorney paused. He hadn't expected that. I continued. I resented that Colonel Hart trusted his judgment over mine in several matters. Adrian watched me. The attorney recovered. So jealousy influenced your thinking? Possibly. Possibly I'm capable of bias. That unsettled the room more than denial would have. Then why should anyone trust your accusations? They shouldn't. The attorney stared. I looked at the panel. They should trust evidence. Pierce lowered her eyes to hide what might have been a smile. The attorney shifted. Evidence such as a transmitter you conveniently discovered after demanding an inspection? Chief Barnes discovered it. At my insistence. Yes, you knew where to look. I suspected emergency systems. Why? Because if someone wanted me dead, preventing rescue would be efficient. A murmur moved through the room. The attorney leaned closer. Why would anyone want you dead, Captain? I no longer believe killing me was the primary objective. That was Pierce's cue. She stood. Objection. This hearing concerns suspension review, not speculation. The panel chair nodded. Sustained. The attorney smiled slightly. He thought that helped him. It did not. He turned another page. Captain, during the test mission, you received an unauthorized route correction. Yes. You then destroyed an unmanned aircraft. An unmanned aircraft that launched live missiles at me. According to your report and recorded weapons telemetry, which was partially damaged. You expect this panel to believe a drone under your program's control spontaneously attempted to kill you? No, I looked at Adrian. I expect them to believe someone ordered it to. His face remained calm. The attorney ended questioning 20 minutes later. Then Pierce stood. Captain Mercer, before your mission, was the replacement drone inspected? Yes. By whom? Technical personnel assigned by Major Cole's former operations section, under additional oversight. Was malicious software found? No. After the attack, did investigators recover fragments? Yes. Did those fragments include the Autonomous Mission Control Core? Yes. Was it original equipment? No. Adrian's head moved barely there. Pierce walked toward the panel. The replacement control core was counterfeit. Adrian's attorney stood. This evidence was not included in the disclosure packet. It was classified under a separate counterintelligence investigation and cleared for presentation this morning. The panel chair frowned. Proceed carefully, Colonel. Pierce nodded. She looked at me. Captain, can a counterfeit control core be installed during routine pre-flight servicing? Not without opening secured access panels. Who had authorization? Maintenance leads, program operations leadership, and designated test engineers. Did you? Yes. Did Chief Barnes? Yes. Did Major Cole? Yes. Adrian's attorney rose. As did dozens of others. Pierce nodded. Correct. Then she placed a photograph on the screen, a tiny screw. The room remained silent. Adrian looked confused. Good. Pierce asked me, Captain, do you recognize this? A tamper-evident fastener from the drone control bay. What is unusual about it? The security coding records tool contact patterns. Different issued torque drivers leave microscopic signatures. Pierce turned toward Adrian. The tool signature on this fastener matches one issued to Major Cole's operations safe. His attorney stood so fast his chair scraped. That tool could have been accessed by staff. It could. Pierce changed the image. Which is why we checked access logs. Security video appears, timestamp 2:14, 3 nights before launch. Adrian enters his office alone. 2:17, the security safe opens. 2:51, it closes. Adrian exits carrying nothing visible. The attorney said, this proves nothing. Pierce nodded. Correct. Adrian's shoulders loosened slightly. Then Pierce displayed another record. Major Cole's government vehicle left the base at 3:08. Toll camera image vehicle confirmed. Another, private airfield, 3:47. Adrian's face finally changed. Nathan Voss stood beside his car. The image was grainy but clear enough. Pierce said, Major Cole met Calder Dynamics executive Nathan Voss for 12 minutes. His attorney turned. Adrian whispered something. The panel chair leaned forward. Major Cole, you failed to disclose this contact. Adrian spoke for the first time. Because it concerned unrelated procurement matters. At 4 a.m? Voss was leaving the country. Pierce nodded. He did leave the country. She changed screens again. 6 hours later, a flight manifest. Destination Lisbon, connection Tenerife, final charter unknown. Adrian's attorney objected repeatedly. The panel allowed most of it. Then came the final piece, not a secret witness, not a miraculous recording, something that had existed from the beginning, the fake transmitter. Pierce placed the serial number on screen. We traced the counterfeit ELT through component distribution records. Adrian's face went white for the first time, truly white. He knew. I didn't. Pierce continued, it originated from a batch manufactured for civilian maritime export. She displayed a purchase order, buyer, Meridian Coastal Services. Shell Company. Payment routed through Calder Dynamics subcontracting accounts. Authorization metadata tied to Nathan Voss. Then another document, a consultancy agreement. Meridian Coastal Services had paid a security advisory company $240,000 over 18 months. The company owner was Adrian Cole's brother-in-law. No sudden inheritance, no mystery billionaire, no impossible coincidence, just money moved through people who believed enough layers could hide it. Pierce looked at Adrian. Would you like to explain? He didn't. His lawyer did. The hearing ended. The criminal investigation began. Adrian was detained before leaving the building. As military police approached, he looked at me. That calm face was gone. You think you won? I stood. No. His eyes burned. You have no idea what this is. That's probably true. You're a pilot who got lucky twice. He frowned. He could not understand why I said it that way. Good. I stepped closer. You made one mistake. What? You thought killing me was necessary. His expression tightened. It wasn't. Framing me would have worked without it. But you wanted certainty. You wanted the aircraft gone, the pilot gone, the investigation pointed somewhere else. He said nothing. That extra step gave you away. The MPs took his arms. Adrian leaned toward me. You'll never know who Voss worked for. Maybe. I looked at Pierce. But she probably will. Pierce smiled without warmth. Adrian was taken away. His network took another 8 months to dismantle. Nathan Voss was detained overseas after attempting to travel under a false identity. The investigation uncovered a procurement espionage operation targeting multiple experimental defense programs. Adrian had not been the mastermind. He had been a compromised insider, debt first, then money, then blackmail. By the time he tried to escape, he had already crossed too many lines. He was convicted under military law for espionage-related offenses, conspiracy, sabotage, attempted murder, falsification of records, and unauthorized disclosure of classified information. His sentence was measured in decades. I attended part of the court-martial, not all of it. Revenge felt different the second time. In my first life, I would have wanted to watch every second. I would have wanted Adrian humiliated, destroyed, forced to admit what he did. In this life, the most satisfying moment was not the sentence. It was the morning I returned to flight status. Barnes stood beside a new Blackfin. Try not to swim this one. I'll do my best. You said that last time and you came back barely. Evelyn walked across the hangar, still Colonel, still controlled, but different. Or maybe I was different enough to see her more clearly. Our marriage had not magically healed. We spent months in counseling. Not because surviving the ocean suddenly made us soulmates again. Because neither of us wanted to carry old patterns into whatever came next. Some sessions were brutal. I told her exactly how deeply her distrust had damaged me. She told me how my habit of turning every professional disagreement into proof she did not love me made communication impossible. I admitted she was right. She admitted she had used procedure to avoid vulnerability. We did not excuse each other. We changed, slowly, awkwardly, honestly. At the end of 6 months, Evelyn asked me over dinner, "Do you want to stay married?" I put down my fork. She had not softened the question. That was progress. I don't know. She nodded. Old Evelyn would have treated uncertainty like rejection. New Evelyn waited. I continued, I don't want the marriage we had. Neither do I. I won't compete with your career. You shouldn't. I also won't accept being treated like emotional input that should be filtered out of professional decisions. You shouldn't. If you don't trust me, say it. Don't hide behind rank. Agreed. And I need room to be angry without you calling it irrational. Her mouth tightened. That may require training. I laughed. Fair. She looked at me. What do you need from me right now? That question would have been impossible for her a year earlier. Time. She nodded. You have it. And you? She thought. The chance to earn something back. Not demand, not recover. Earn. I reached across the table, not far, just enough to place my hand beside hers. She didn't grab it. She waited. So did I. That was enough. A year after the crash, I transferred from experimental test operations into the Maritime Special Project Squadron. It was not a promotion, not technically, but it was mine. I helped redesign emergency survival systems for long-range aircraft and wrote new authentication procedures for mission route updates. Barnes called the rules obsessive. Then he helped write half of them. Colonel Pierce eventually told me that changes had been adopted across 3 commands. That mattered more to me than rank. In my first life, I died because someone exploited invisible weaknesses. In my second, I made those weaknesses harder to exploit. Evelyn received orders for a new command on the West Coast. She came home holding the transfer packet. We need to talk. I looked at the orders. When? Months. Congratulations. She searched my face. That's it? What do you want me to do? Forbid the military from transferring you? In the old days, you might have considered it. In the old days, I was an idiot. You were not emotionally creative. That earned a smile. She sat beside me. I'm not asking you to follow. I know. I want you to decide what you want first. I looked at her. It was such a small sentence. It would have saved us years. What do you want? I asked. That's not an answer about the transfer. I know. She took a breath. I want the command. I also want this marriage. I don't know if both are possible. Better. That sounds like a real problem instead of an order. She rolled her eyes. I thought about North Point, my squadron, the work I had built, the ocean, the second life I now understood belonged to me. I'm staying here for now. Pain crossed her face, but she nodded. Okay. Okay? I said I wanted you to choose. And if my choice hurts, then it hurts. That was when I knew we had changed, not because love had become easier, but because control had stopped pretending to be love. We lived apart for 8 months. Flew across the country when schedules allowed. Argued, missed flights, rescheduled dinners, had one catastrophic fight in Seattle about whether a 2-word text counted as communication. It did not. Eventually, a joint posting became available. Neither of us manipulated assignments to get it. Neither demanded sacrifice. We applied. We waited. We got it. 3 years after the crash, Evelyn pinned Brigadier General stars onto her uniform. I was there. So was Barnes. So was Pierce. After the ceremony, someone asked whether I minded being married to a general. I looked at Evelyn. She looked at me, terrified. I said, she replied, he should be. Everyone laughed. Later, when we were alone, she punched my shoulder. The good one. You enjoy that joke too much. It keeps me humble. You have never suffered from excessive humility. True. We walked toward the seawall outside the command building. The Atlantic stretched beyond it, calm that evening. Almost beautiful. I had avoided the shoreline for a long time after the crash. Then one morning, I forced myself back. Not because I wanted to conquer fear. Fear was not an enemy. It was memory doing its job. I went back because I refused to surrender an entire ocean to a dead version of myself. Evelyn leaned against the railing. Do you still dream about it? Sometimes. The crash, the water. She nodded. She knew not to press. There was one truth I never told her, not about rebirth, not about the first timeline, not about dying alone. Some truths had no useful place in the world. But one evening, years later, she asked a question that came close. If things had gone differently, do you think we would have found our way back to each other? I watched waves strike the rocks below. No, she looked at me. I continued, I think sometimes people get one chance and waste it. That's bleak. It's honest. And us. I looked at her. We got lucky. She smiled faintly. I don't believe in luck. I do. Since when? Since I woke up when I should have been dead. She studied me. I had said too much. But she only took my hand. Then I'm glad you did. Years passed. Adrian became a name in an old case file. The Blackfin program survived. The security failures didn't. Neither did the version of me who needed other people's trust to prove my own worth. I made captain, then senior project commander. Eventually, I turned down a promotion that would have taken me away from the work I cared about. Old me would never have done that. Old me chased rank because rank could not leave. Old me wanted recognition because recognition felt safer than affection. Dying cured me of several stupid ambitions. Not all. Barnes still insisted I was unbearable. On the 10th anniversary of the crash, North Point dedicated a maritime survival training facility. They asked me to speak. I refused. They asked again. I refused again. Then Barnes told me the facility was being named after 3 rescue personnel who had died in unrelated missions over the previous decade. So I attended. I stood before young pilots and rescue crews, looked at the ocean behind them, and kept the speech short. Equipment fails. Plans fail. Intelligence fails. People fail. The point of redundancy is not believing failure won't happen, it's accepting that it will and making sure one failure doesn't become the end of the story. That was all. No grand lesson, no heroic mythology. Afterward, a lieutenant approached me. "Sir, is it true General Hart stayed awake for 3 days during your search?" I looked across the crowd. Evelyn was speaking with Pierce. Her hair had silver in it now, still straight-backed, still terrifying. Mostly true. Mostly. I think Pierce forced her to sleep 90 minutes. The lieutenant laughed. Did she really threaten to challenge the order if they stopped searching? I smiled. That part is definitely true. He looked impressed. Must have been good knowing she was out there. I looked at the ocean. It was. He left. Evelyn joined me. What did he ask? Whether you ignored orders. I did not ignore orders. I challenged them. That is different. Of course. She narrowed her eyes. Ryan. Yes, General. Don't. I smiled. We walked away from the ceremony together. At the edge of the parking lot, she stopped. What? She looked toward the water. 3 days. I knew what she meant. She still counted. Every year. You found me. I almost didn't. But you did. She was quiet. What if I hadn't? Old question. Old fear. I took her hand. Then you would have searched until they made you stop. Her fingers tightened. Yes. I know. I looked back at the Atlantic, at the endless water that had killed me once and failed the second time. Because I remembered another world where nobody came. Because I knew exactly what abandonment felt like. Because when I heard her voice calling my name through a dying radio on the second night, I finally understood the difference between someone who said they cared and someone who refused to leave. But I could not tell her any of that. So I gave her the only answer that belonged to this life, because you searched 3 days and 3 nights when everyone else thought the sea had already made the decision for us. Evelyn looked at me. Then she smiled, not the cold colonel, not the general, just my wife. The sea was wrong. I looked toward the horizon. Once I had died out there believing my life had been decided by betrayal, fear, and someone else's choices. This time I had survived long enough to make my own. Yes, I said. It was.